The NES release of TMNT 2 has this sort of love-hate relationship about it ingrained within the Turtles fanbase. It's polarizing to a degree, dividing the fanbase into two separate camps, and rightfully so. On one hand, it's often considered a watered-down port of the arcade game, stripping away the most integral features it's widely praised for. On the other end, it's touted for its creative liberties, defying these setbacks through adversity. In fact, by the end of this video, you may even argue the case that this is something entirely unique. A reimagining of said events, now optimized for the all-new Nintendo Entertainment System. It's no secret, I have an affinity for the NES, and the community never disappoints, continuing to show their support for this mighty toaster oven. We've been blessed over the years with some fantastic homebrews, fan translations for those game-breaking scenarios, and even demakes that breathe new life into the console, recapturing that beautiful 8-bit aesthetic all over again. With that said, I'm not just comparing this directly to its arcade counterpart. I know, bizarre, right? I'm going to pit this up against the many NES offerings that came to retail around this time. Besides, this is an old 8-bit Nintendo cartridge, so comparing this solely to the arcade game would be like comparing the OG FF7 to Rebirth and bitching about those jagged yellow cheese curds poking out all around poor Cloud's head. However, coming back around to the biggest hurdles Turtles 2 faced would primarily center around the console's limited horsepower. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but Turtles 2 doesn't utilize the NES 4 score like a few of the other 4-player arcade games on the console. If you were somehow playing this with a whole squad, I imagine you would end up with what, like one lone foot soldier on screen to share amongst your 3 amigos? This fatal flaw, combined with a near obsolete script of dialogue, can take you out of the moment, losing a great deal of spark that made this experience a monumental moment across the arcade scene. Although we sound ready to throw in the towel, let's hold out a bit longer. I can't put my finger on it, but something continues to draw me back to the number 2 printed in the title, now staring back as if it's the clue I was searching for to put things into perspective in efforts to better understand where Konami was headed with things here. We now must do some 8-bit soul searching, uncovering the clues which we can use to make these shell-shocking events make a bit more sense in the grand scheme of things. So, in order to get those answers, we're going to have to turn to the opening pages of the North American Manual, where we stumble upon our very first clue. While rummaging through these first few pages, we're placed back on a destined path with the events of their first live-action movie. Here our turtles get their first taste of poetic justice, as this finale finds our turtles in cleanup mode, putting out the curbside trash a la Shredder. This mental metal dictator was supposedly crushed by the pulverizing jaws of a sewage street sweeper. However, due to the flashy nature of our fiendish fellow, his metallic chrome dome managed to shield him from a fatal demise, escaping death once more. In due time, Shredder awakens, finding himself deep inside a loaded cargo ship, headed out to sea. These deep-sea exploits grant Shredder the time needed to lick his wounds clean, seizing the moment and revising his plans moving ahead. Drifting back to shore, he begins training a new breed of fiendish foot, while inevitably acquiring the services of Krang, forming a deadly alliance of brains and bronze. A killer combination of Foot Clan combat, paired with the technological brilliance of the main brain Krang, and his army of rock soldiers who reign over Dimension X. This 2-man power trip leads to the discovery of the translocation matrix beam, allowing Shredder transit across the vast reaches of space and time, where he proceeds to acquire the services of the universe's strongest warriors for the conquest of Earthrealm. Okay, Shao Kahn, settle down. Shredder's first stop leads him to the icy lands of planet Tragladoon, searching out the services of a legendary 10-foot, half-ton polar bear known across the galaxies as the notorious Tora. Legend states that for over 2,000 years, this champion has reigned supreme in combat. Currently the reigning, defending, universal champion, now marketing himself as an intergalactic bounty hunter whom looks to test his strength in combat against New York's finest heroes in a half show. With Tora now an official brand ambassador of the Foot Clan Club, Shredder would seek out a partner to accompany Tora to create a fearsome new duo. I mean, come on guys, we all know by now, Shredder's only packaging these mutants up in pairs. However, to do so, Shredder would now set his sights on the reigning Sector 6 champion, residing in the dreaded Dead Star Zone, a mastermind in combat who wields his planet's ultimate weapon. No, not the Buster Sword, folks. Shogun wields the mighty galactic sword. Well, actually, just a tip, a Naginata polearm with a deadly spirit blade attached at the end. Rest assured, the dude is no joke, and with the power of Dimension X backing this tandem, I imagine the prize money hanging over the turtles' heads is quite hefty. With this new elite Foot Clan assembled, the Shredder proceeds forward with his new plans, the only way he knows how. Ripping the heart right out of our hero's shells, kidnapping the ravishing reporter April, as these parallel events now unfold side by side with the arcade canon. Two different timelines coexisting, now on a collision course with one another. Yet the important question presenting here is how will things unfold moving forward? With a handful of shortcomings plaguing this release, I still believe there's a good deal of positives here that can be easily overshadowed. There's a rich variety of added content and bonus features that packs a few pounds on a rather slimmed down home port. Now, compare this to something like an NES Double Dragon, a single player alternating experience that sprinkles in some questionable platforming segments, and I'd say we're doing pretty good for ourselves here. Sticking to the script by taking these limitations and reworking specific aspects about it to maintain a co-op element throughout. The biggest thing you're going to notice after playing this for a bit is the longer stretches throughout each act. The opener itself makes it pretty apparent, as this Holiday Inn Express has an entire additional stairway segment with many bowling lanes to trample our heroes with. This extends gameplay and stretches out each act. The big issue here is that it exploits the lack of on-screen variety, limiting the enemy assortment to one flavor at all times when duking it out with the turtles. To add to this simplified approach, there's fixed enemy encounter rates throughout each stage. Where the arcade game bumps up the body count depending on your performance leading up to these events, the NES release keeps a standard formula throughout. This is great for those looking to speedrun this, but if you're looking for an added challenge at times, sadly, this will be a pretty big bummer. The irony here is you could make the case that this difficulty spike was simply to drain your piggy bank upon walking into the local arcade, finding Shredder sending more and more goons your way till you find yourself pumping enough coins into this canister to pay off the operator's investment. So I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but just know you're playing with house money here, so go for broke. Where things begin to noticeably add up for me is in your character repertoire, most specifically Raph's sweet rolling thunder maneuver, now a mere afterthought, now reverting back to the same signature special his three brothers come equipped with. It's fine for the most part, but I always appreciated this, granting an already short-ranged offense somewhat of an equalizer. It was also just a pretty badass technique to see in action. The new breed that roam these city streets move in unique patterns and sequences. Where the foot at a time may have had a one-and-done approach to getting the job done, they now have a bit more hindsight with their approach. They now appear reprogrammed, as if they've been scanning the turtles in combat, downloading their latest battle techniques. Where a foot crony may have once thrown out a single spear for a lucky insta-kill, they now carry a whole bag of goodies around, able to hurl an endless supply to keep you hot-footing it forward. Some of these knuckleheads used to toss a single firecracker out, like a quick schoolyard prank, yet now they put on a 4th of July exhibition, lighting up the city streets. Now, I might be a little biased when it comes to compositions, as the NES version has its own blend of chiptune tracks that, let's be real, needs to coexist along with the arcade original. On its own, the 8-bit OST is a real bop, with a few new tracks to shell out to. Most notably, Down Here in the Sewers, which in my opinion, gives these parts a far darker, far more sinister feel to it, where at any moment you could just picture the foot begin bobbing to the beat of their own drum. Another favorite of mine is the highway chase. It's got the perfect tempo that keeps your adrenaline pumping when things unfold to a downhill jam. When it comes to the stages themselves, the experience rewrites itself, creating a brand new series of events that unfold before you, retelling a storied arcade experience through a blend of new environments and boss battles that currently appear to be changing with the seasons. Huh? Christmas in July? Well, that's strange. As the weather now quickly drops to a critical low, finding you trekking across the freshly fallen snow as the foot rain in some holiday cheer with a good old-fashioned snowball fight through Central Park. There's so much charm wrapped up in this stage, like these adorable Mr. Frosties that come to life through the spirit of Christmas. Well, don't be fooled. These things are anything but jolly, as things only get more bizarre the moment you swiftly kick the snow sledge off them, revealing a killer jackrabbit under its cold, calculated exterior. Missiles deploy from these suckers all while snowplows sweep the streets, looking to dine on some turtle soup. you'll shortly after discover another mutant module has surfaced, now bringing forth the quick-handed Titan Tora, catching the now hailing debris for a quick game of hot potato as the weather conditions quickly ramp up. This dude is an icy cold killer, sporting his bossy leather jacket and hurling those colossal chunks of hail with finesse. In order to remain this cold-blooded killer, Shredder now kicks his satellite into overdrive, allowing Tora to fight in his native climate. He will regroup with each attack, clobbering you with a paw strike to the head. He's got a pretty predictable movement pattern, and if you can get a good jump kick rhythm going, you will put him away with ease. As the snowfields melt away, we proceed to head up Midtown, where a parking lot brawl quickly breaks out. It appears this time around, we got a few additional hits out on our old Turtle Boys. The stage has all the essentials for the perfect back alley street fight, making it oh so satisfying to methodically dissect these mechanical cretins. Line them up and knock them dead with a line of traffic cones, or how about a parking meter to the face? Eventually, this path will lead you to the coordinates of April's captor, whom has suffered a horrific fate at the hands of the Shredder, subjecting this scientist to that green sticky substance we like to call retro mutagen ooze, transforming Baxter into his grotesque new state. In the arcade release, these events lead to a rematch with Bebop and Rocksteady, yet here on the home turf, we got a whole slew of new problems on our hands. Baxter quickly takes flight, spazzing out as he hovers about, spreading his wings for the very first time. He's got a pretty wicked offense, launching a series of electrically charged spheres as he buzzes about. They move in sync, locking in on our turtles as you attempt to bob and weave below. Baxter will anticipate your every move, soaring back and forth, taking full advantage of the situation. Continue to swat away, backing him up with each super kick landed, keeping him in a constant stun-locked position as you chip away for the remainder of this fight. Dazed and confused, he will eventually take a tumble for the worst, leading to April's safe return. As our team regroups, they celebrate in style, looking to hit the open road, now in pursuit of the old Shredder. Surprisingly, Baxter's fly form wasn't the only new addition slated to debut here on the NES. At a point in time, it appeared that Metalhead was in the works as an additional new boss encounter. Where he would have made his debut is beyond me, but I would think he would have fit in quite well at the end of the highway street scene. Nevertheless, where the arcade release looked to steal your hard-earned bucks, the NES version rewarded you for each of those smaller victories, replenishing your health the moment you clear another end-stage big bad. Saving Splinter reveals an entrance to an underground city filled with traps and optical illusions at every turn. Shogun's castle now bears new life, deep underground through the power of Dimension X technology, making a space-time connection between this world and Shogun's. An area filled with the fighting spirit of the Fallen, you encounter a gauntlet of enemies exclusive to this area where Cyclopean ninjas manifest, dashing up and over you in a blink of an eye, firing a deadly array of kunai daggers. These are indeed some hefty boys, and they will take a beating before you're putting them down. Foot infantry will remain hidden within these walls, while the floorboards beneath you continue to shift. The floors reveal deadly weapons that look to skewer our turtles right through the half-shell. Statues bear new life, preying upon your fears, as do swarms of venomous scorpions roboticized with a chemically charged tail strike that will electrify you to the core. The castle will continue to take new form until it leads you to your final test, where Shogun awaits. This will be hands down the most challenging boss encounter of the game, as Shogun's head detaches from its spectre-like torso, taking flight about the room, spinning throughout while the main torso lunges at you. Keeping enough distance, you can lure the head far enough away, creating enough separation to land some clean body blows. However, you can easily get punished if you don't play your cards right, so keep a keen eye on both components of his offense at all times, as he will deal significant damage with each blow. This will be a slugfest, but it's intended to be so, as one of the new big bads for the NES, so stick and move till you eventually put him away, revealing a clear path down into the Technodrome, where Shredder awaits. As you navigate the Technodrome, it's quickly made apparent that this home port suffers from graphical discrepancies. What we ultimately lose down the stretch is the variety of those late-game enemy swarms that come in waves towards our turtles, along with that witty dialogue and back-and-forth banter. Do I miss the in-game script? Absolutely, but does it hinder the experience here? Well, for most 8-bit NES games at this time, it didn't really exist, so it doesn't really seep into my subconscious while playing. It just feels like I'm playing the NES, and that's really okay with me. I never looked at both games side by side and considered one inferior. It really just came down to the aesthetic preference. And as I continued my march throughout the Technodrome, I was generally just thrilled I was playing through another Turtles game on my NES. These fights don't have the same presentation the arcade release does, but they still have that NES charm about them. The final battle with Shredder isn't nearly as stressful as our arcade showdown. Here, you're face off with two Shredders at all times, never multiplying the same way his shadow clones did prior. Here, it's pretty easy to narrow down the real Shredder. It might take a few helmet punts or two, but you're gonna know sooner or later who the real deal is. He can still one-shot you with his retro mutagen ray gun, but by now, you should be well versed in combat to finish him off without hesitation. With Shredder lying at our hero's feet, they quickly depart, now leaving Shredder's survival up to fate. Soon after, the city puts on a grand celebration, commemorating our Turtle Gang for their bravery, now front and center on the Jumbotron with a returning Turtle Blimp parading past in Macy's Day fashion. The NES release of Turtles Arcade was quite an ambitious home release, to say the least. It debuted at a time where a couch co-op experience was few and far between. These were experimental times for the gaming industry collectively that came with a fair share of growing pains. Although we unfortunately wouldn't be graced with a 4-player home console release, Konami still managed to work their magic here, building around these shortcomings by giving us a far greater story campaign, expanding the universe of the ever-changing world of the Turtles. I love the introduction of our new bounty hunters, two of my personal favorite characters that now almost seem to have been forgotten along with many of Konami's TMNT originals. Although we missed out on an arcade rematch with Bebop and Rocksteady, the introduction of the Fly was an excellent way of making up for this. I think these incentives made purchasing the NES release far more rewarding in the end. The new stages had a great deal going for them, interactive down the stretch, encapsulating me from start to end with plenty of momentum that brought these scenes to life. Sure, some stages were scaled back in terms of on-screen assets and enemy variety, yet what we get in return redeemed many parts of this journey. The game deserves its flowers for its definitive content, earning the title Turtles 2, now sitting alongside a legendary run of 8-bit Konami games for the NES. Fast forward to today, and we have more options than ever to enjoy these games, making it abundantly clear that these two games aren't the same, therefore they shouldn't be reviewed like they are. This is TMNT 2 for NES, and this is TMNT Arcade, so when it comes to the official arcade game, I'm gonna have to make a few phone calls to get the ball rolling for this review. Hang on, gang, as I assemble a new team of challengers, we gotta push forward, continuing our journey across the NES library, where we look to follow up on these story events further. It's a pizza-powered marathon, and this pie crust has only started to rise, as it now heats up to our third franchise installment with TMNT The Manhattan Project. See you there, gang.